they just silent on why, you know, they must have a reasoning and an argument for it? Like, thank you.
The item came before Planning Commission, as well as the Historic Conservation Board. And the architect for 3CDC explained and defended the architecture. But, you know, in terms of how it's compatible, I thought that there was a lack of it just didn't fit. And so, I mean, 3CDC and the architect, they're defending the architectural style. And so I think we're at a point where, you know, the city has to decide, the Planning Commission and planning staff has to decide, is this compatible or not? We haven't seen much movement from the architect or 3CDC from the original design. So it's really a question that you have to ask them.
Well, what is their defense? What was their defense of the modern design?
What was the defense?
Yeah, like, did they say it was good for a reason?
I think the architect felt it was a good design. And it was
urban.
Different and unique.
Urban.
I beg your pardon?
And he said urban.
Yeah, urban. I mean, you could put that building in other neighborhoods and it would probably fit in. You could put it in the core downtown, it could probably fit in. But you're dealing with an urban environment and a certain architectural style in Over-the-Rhine where, you know, if you put an all-glass metal building in the middle of the neighborhood, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb, as I say. So in terms of them defending it, they feel that it's compatible. The majority of people who spoke did not feel it was compatible. And so November 18th, I think there's going to have to be a decision about that.
We're going to allow all three questioners to pose their questions, and then the panelists can also respond individually or as a group. I know each one of these individuals wants to pose a question. If you have a question, you can also go to the other side, but I'm just in short sequence.
Hello, my name is Brittany Skelton. I graduated from the School of Planning in Taft 2010 in June, and now I work for Over-the-Rhine Community Housing, and we are a nonprofit in Over-the-Rhine that provides affordable housing. And I guess just after being here all day, 9 to 5, and working in Over-the-Rhine and everything, I kind of just have a little bit of commentary. First, I just want to say that as a nonprofit in Over-the-Rhine, it was mentioned this morning that a lot of subsidized housing down there is vacant. And I just wanted to let everyone know in the audience that we manage about 92 buildings. We're the 4th largest property holder in the neighborhood. We have approximately 350 apartments, and we run at about a 96% occupancy rate all the time since I've been there. So that's just kind of, if anyone's ever looking for an apartment, we have students living down there. Part of our mission statement is to promote an inclusive community, and that's really something we stand behind. Second, with everything that's talked about the planning process and things like that, I've been to all of the HCRB meetings, where 3CDC's presented Mercer Commons, and my feeling as a planner with that, part of the problem was that there wasn't public involvement in the design process at all that I'm aware of. The first meeting that I went to where the plans were presented, it was more so kind of an informality of 3CDC letting everyone in the room know what they had been planning, and they had already moved to construction documents for some of the designs, and their entire design kind of hinged upon the fact that they would be able to get the zoning changed to a PD, which happened. And yeah, so definitely go to the meetings, and if not make comments, just listen and get more involved in the planning process in our city, because there are plenty of opportunities all the time, and I go to meetings all the time about Over-the-Rhine.
Thank you. I'm Judith Sproul-Schmidt, and I'd like to speak specifically to Historic Conservation Board, where I'm the vice chair. And we will have a meeting on the 14th, right, before you can, Caleb. And I wanted to clarify one point, that notions of compatibility are vague, but our specific responsibility on the Historic Conservation Board is to determine whether a proposed plan meets or is compatible with specifically the historic guidelines for the district, not just not totally subjectively, or at least not disconnected from the sense. It's not just somebody's vague notion of compatibility, but whether whether it meets the guidelines. That's the most important point I want to make. And we're happy to hear anybody who comes and speaks on the 14th, and then we turn it over to you and you make the decision.
Could I take a minute to respond?
Yes.
Not just to what she had to say with the last two. First of all, while I am chair of the Planning Commission, I will not participate in a decision having to do with Mercer Commons, and that's because in this instance I have to recuse myself because I have a conflict of interest between my two roles. My boss in the Hamilton County Democratic Party is the attorney involved in this case, and so I cannot be part of it. That said, I have not participated in the meetings, but I have followed the issue a little bit. And it strikes me that when you talk about compatibility in the historic district, it's a lot in the eye of the beholder.
Yes.
And at least from my perspective anyway, in Over-the-Rhine, first of all, we want to retain the historic architecture and protect it and make sure that it remains intact. However, we are going to have new development come into it. And I think we can all think of examples of buildings that have been designed to kind of mimic old architecture that in fact are actually somewhat atrocious. So I think there is an argument to be made for a new structure in that neighborhood that is contemporary. My personal perspective would be, I'd be concerned about scale.
And verticality.
Verticality and things of that sort, not so much necessarily architectural style. The comment was made that there should have been community involvement in the actual design. It made me think of the old joke about an elephant being a horse designed by committee. You know, I'm not sure that's appropriate, really, for design decisions of that kind to be made by a neighborhood committee. I do think it is important, however, that some close attention be paid to the level of compatibility. But I think there also is a lot of room for debate about what compatibility means.
If I can make just one other quick comment, that is there are several pieces in this enormous proposal that Historic Conservation Board at this point has not recommended either construction or demolition for. Most of the project has been recommended, just not all of it. And verticality is the single most important issue in that building, because verticality is certainly critical to the development of that area, and that building could, in some of our perspective, could be more vertical. Thanks.
I think she was actually in line first, but then we'll go back to the left-hand side.
I'm sorry. My name is Ari, and I was wondering, Marisa, you specifically were talking about like the opportunities that Cincinnati has as a city, and I was wondering if the panel could speak to what opportunities they see the streetcar as realizing, maybe specifically for Cincinnati and even more specifically for Over-the-Rhine, or conversely, what opportunities they see it not working for.
Well, I'll start off. The benefits to the streetcar are several-fold in my mind. One, I think it could be a great economic engine. It's a transportation vehicle, but it's also an opportunity to promote and create economic development. If you look at the route that's being proposed from downtown, originally all the way up to this area, uptown, linking downtown and a major employment area, just think of the opportunities that it would create in terms of